please pick up the pace, said Whiting to the snail. There's a porpoise close behind who's treading on my tail. See how eagerly the lobsters, turtles all advance. They're waiting on the shingles. Will you come and join the dance? Will you, won't you, will you, won't you, will you join the dance? Will you, won't you, will you, won't you join the dance? You can really have no notion how fun it will be when they take us up and throw us lobsters out to sea. But the snail replied too far and gave a look askance. Said he thanked the whiting, but he would not join the dance. Would not, could not, would not, could not, could not join the dance. Would not, could not, would not, could not, could not join the dance. What matters how far we go, his scaly friend replied. There's another shore, you know, upon the other side. The farther off from England than the neighbor is to France. Turn not pale, beloved, sail, but come and join the dance. Will you, won't you, will you, won't you, will you join the dance? Will you, won't you, will you, won't you, won't you join the dance?
Beware the Jabberwock, my son, the jaws that bite, the claws that catch. Beware the Jub-Jub bird, and shun the frumious Bandersnatch. He took his vorpal sword in hand, long time the manxome foe he sought. So rested he by the Tum-Tum tree, and stood a while in thought. And as in uffish thought he stood, the
As it came, two, and through the vocal soul, snicker snacker.
he left it dead. And with its head, he went galumphing back.
chop things.
So strange, this way. I know how to make the ticking stop. I know how to make the vocal chops. I know how to make your ears pop. I know how to make the ticking stop. I know how to make some vocal chops. I know how to make your ears pop. I know how to make the bass drop. Bass drop.
Okay, second
Bass drop.
monitor myself. Yeah, cool. Boom. Hey guys, welcome to the second of my mime classes in this whole series of movement performance. So today is our class on movement and creating environments, exploring environments. We're going to get into environments in the second half because we're going to need some of the movement stuff to begin with. Just to put this out there, since these videos are going out on YouTube for later viewing, if you are watching this without watching my first video on fixed point, or if you don't have any understanding of what that is, please watch that one first. I'm kind of building off of the other. This is a very introductory series. As I warned everyone in the first video, mimes are nerds, and they get incredibly technical as they get into their techniques, as they build things in a very mechanical way. It produces some amazing stuff at the end, and all of the illusions and sort of spatial awareness, three-dimensional concepts that come out of mime are amazing, but they start in these really fundamental building blocks. So we went over fixed point, we went over a couple other things, but that's the big one we're going to use today. Yeah, so go check that video out if you haven't already. Once you've done that, come back, and we're going to say hi to you again on this video. So for everyone who is coming back, hi, welcome back. And what we're going to do now is do a quick warm-up, just in case you haven't warmed up yourself. I always have to do weird, crazy tech setups for this, so we're going to roll our shoulders back a little bit, just kind of waking up some mobility. The nice thing about mime, you can switch directions. The nice thing about mime is that it can be both very strenuous and very light on your body. Cool. Let's get some wrist circles here. I'm crunching like crazy today. I'm looking at my stream and going, oh, it's paused. Huh, okay. Don't pause your monitors on your stream. Don't do that. I was like, panic! We're all good. We're all good. Okay. Cool. If you haven't switched directions, let's do that. But we're going to do some hands. I will say this while we're warming up just briefly for a minute. Let's get some foot circles in. I'll say switch a couple times. We'll just switch directions on this foot and then switch feet. When we're doing, mime can be very demanding on these higher up joints. Switch direction. By what I mean by that is you can get kind of puppet syndrome, right? So puppeteers have to do this for hours at a time, and I'm having tap my head, rub my belly problems here. Switch your foot. They have to do this, so their shoulders get really roughed up because this is not a stable position to hold in. Mime can do kind of the same thing. It's not that that is hard. Switch directions. It's not that it's hard to keep your hand over your head or keep it extended. It's just that it's hard to do that for an extended period of time. And that's what we're going to be kind of pushing into. Shake those legs out. Let's get a little squat going. So we're going to put our feet about shoulder width apart. We're going to keep them parallel. We're going to Scoot our hips back. I'll do this sideways. Scoot our hips back. Bend at the waist, bend at the knees. We're trying to keep our shins as vertical as possible. We're not going to let ourselves fold over. We're going to be hitting that nice, trying to get down to 90. If we can't, don't worry about it. Kind of wiggle in there, let that sit. We're going to be activating these quads, activating here. We want our feet to be flat so we can grip the floor. Yeah. Cool. Okay. Hopefully you warmed up a little bit more. If not, it's all right. Okay, quick review. Fixed point, gluing a point in space, moving around it. We worked about on three-dimensional movement around this fixed point in our previous class. We are going to take some of that concept of three-dimensional movement and we are going to expand it into a couple different arenas. So now we're going to take this fixed point, and what we're going to do is we are now going to unfix it. We are going to make this an impetus for movement. Now, the reason I say we're taking this point and unfixing it is because we have to think about where we're grabbing it or where it is attached to us, like a little Velcro ball or something. If I grab it here and this point begins to move, right, it will drag my body from that point and then doing the accordion thing out through the rest of my body. Okay? So, again, I'll explain this a couple different ways. So when this point happens, if it is pulling, it doesn't pull my body as a unit. Okay, Mimes will talk about. We haven't even gotten into some of the more fundamental but harder to do and understand bits about isolations and translations that your body can do. But body as a unit would mean everything moves at the same time. Nothing is left behind. However, when we do movement from the outside to my body, right, this is unfixing, it's moving, it's going to drag my fingers out, my hand is going to pull my arm, let's say forearm, my forearm is going to grab my upper arm is going to grab my shoulder is going to extend because I have a little bit of mobility there. That's going to pull my chest over, it's going to pull my waist over, my hips, and then eventually my feet. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. So that is an outside force acting on me because now this point, instead of being stuck in space, has dynamic. Okay? Let's play with that just a little bit as an exercise to get used to this. Go slow. This is about understanding the mechanics. Think of this as kind of a train car. Right? The engine pulls the next car, that next car pulls the third car pulls the fourth car, fifth car, right? That's how this works. So if you start going and you anticipate the movement, I'll tell you what, let's experiment with that a little bit, and I'll talk about anticipating the movement when I discover myself doing it, because I will. Okay, so what's going on? Sorry. Oh, my video has some weirdness going on. It's weird. It's got some art. Let me know if it looks like there's some like red artifacting or something. This isn't red over here. I'm not really sure what's going on with that, but I will see what I can do if that's a problem. Where was I? There we go. This point, just pull it sideways or across your body. Now let's start sideways. So we're going to let this point start pulling our fingers, pulling our hand. Shoulder hasn't moved yet. It's pulling our arm. Upper arm, shoulder still hasn't moved. Straightens, shoulder pulls chest, chest pulls my waist and my hips. My feet are trying to stay on the ground, and they eventually get pulled over. Cool. Let's take our other hand and let's go across. We're going to the same direction, just now with our opposite hand. So we're going to take a fixed point. Kind of use that fixed point. Cool. Now that is going to travel on its own. It's going to pull my fingers across. See how I pulled my fingers, my hand. Now there's this interesting effect going on. Like to move that arm this way, my elbow has to peel out. And you're going to feel this sort of pull out with that elbow across. My arm is straightened. Now it's pulling on my shoulder a little bit. It's pulling my shoulder, twisting my torso, twisting my waist, twisting my hips. Got a lot more distance I can go without moving my legs. And off we go. Okay, let's do one more. Pick any direction you want. I'm going to go up and diagonal with my right hand. So I'm going to grab a point. I'm going to grab it down low just for fun. It's going to start traveling up on this seatbelt diagonal thing going here. It's going to pull my hand. It's going to pull my forearm, my other arm. Now, because of this angle, this is interesting. Because of this angle, it's pulling on my shoulder already because my arm doesn't have a lot of straightness here until my shoulder gets above rotates a certain way. Cool. Okay. That is outside in movement. It's very important to understand how things can drag your body and how that is different from moving on your own. I'm doing this first intentionally because it's a very natural thing to move on our own. We did a little bit of that doing the fixed point work. We sort of initiated movement from the inside going out. Outside in is when something else is acting on you. This is the whole idea behind walking against the wind, any of that sort of illusion stuff. So it's a great concept to keep in mind as we begin to explore moving through a world and giving it some reacting to that world as it comes at us. One quick thing, you can do this with any body part. Your foot can happen, like you'll probably have to, it will be easier if you start with it kind of floating and to feel it pull. So your foot pulls, your knee straightens, pulls your hip, and sucks you down over this way. Feet are difficult because you have to end up balancing on your leg, and they are very hard to stay honest with. So at a certain point, my foot is now planted over here, and that's it. Now I'm done because my foot was what was dragging me, and now my foot is locked in, right? So my foot is now braced on the floor. That's not good for your foot. And B, now the motion that was pulling my toes is stuck. It has stopped. So nothing is pulling anymore because it's an outside force, right? So it pulled on my toe. Now it's stopped against the floor. Boom. There can be effects, but we're going to get to that in just a bit in the environment stuff. So outside in. I was going to say, you can also do things like hips. Those are kind of fun. It's a great movement exploration. If you've taken dance classes, they have similar exercises to this, where you get pulled by a different part of your body. Mime is just a bit more specific, whereas you are trying to be true to the physics of getting pulled in a certain direction from a certain body part. Right, we can kind of imagine something has grabbed a hold of us and pulled us out. Okay, let's now take that and let's add what I just did. Actually, I got ahead of myself. Let's add dynamic. So now we understand this sort of dragging of force, right? How this operates in our body, how one part pulls the next, pulls the next, pulls the next. We get that train car effect. What happens if we add speed. This was all maybe powerful but gentle, right? There was no locking up, no trying to stop it. You probably noticed we did this here where there was a weird, like, okay, my shoulder has to rotate and then my arm can be straight. Your body doesn't work the same way in every direction. Let me see if I can get a little bit closer for this one. So this is a great example. As my arm is trying to travel on this diagonal, this part of my body to go that way, I can here, right? My shoulder hasn't done anything, but this part of my arm is straightening. This one, I can't do that because my shoulder has so many angles, it's only built to like really accommodate this motion and a few of them. So I rotate my shoulder to a certain point, like that, right? That's some exaggerating the internal workings of it. And then it will allow this part of my arm, the elbow, to go straight. That is a locking sort of force, right? This is something that it is not as easy to move as this. So this is going to be a very quick and loose thing because there's no tension in here. This is going to be pretty tight and stuck. So what we do is we pay attention to these sorts of things. And this one, this is a straight thing. This happens very quickly. My torso gets pulled pretty quickly because of that. This as well. So if we add speed, we add dynamic to it. Let's take this one first to start with. It's easier. I pull, I pull, I pull. Now, this is going so fast, this doesn't know what's going on. Right? So this is why we were very careful to not get ahead of ourselves in this previous exercise. Right? We didn't want to go, kind of see how I moved my core, my waist and my chest kind of at the same time, and I didn't allow the chest to get pulled and then the waist. The reason we do that is we add speed. This is trying to, in the physics sense, this has inertia. This wants to stay at rest. This has momentum and velocity, force, all those good physics words. Boom, it's going to go that way, and it's going to yank this over from where it's attached. Boom, it's going to do that. Now, we talked a little bit about how things were isolated when we did fixed point. My head is going to try to stay where it is when this happens because it doesn't know that anything is going on. We can also trace the contact, right? From my shoulder, force has to go to here, then to my neck, and that gets to my head. So this is going to move way faster. So boom, it gets left behind. Right, so only my chest moved, and all of this was surprised and did the Wile E. Coyote thing of like, whoa, got left behind. You don't have to do the leg thing. That's an artifact that I have after years of doing this. But let's take that at a little bit of speed. You can kind of feel that little jerk, right? So we're trying to get this fixed point to pull out. And we're trying to always be surprised here, here, here. Okay, the rest of your body doesn't know about this. Try it a different direction. Yeah? Find that bit of what is not aware that it's getting pulled until the last second. It's totally okay to take a stumble. That is part of the technique. I don't recommend jumping straight to that because it could throw out your shoulder. Once you've done shoulders a couple times, try crossing your body. Try crossing your body at different angles. Okay, try to be honest. If you find something that didn't feel like it was an honest movement, and by honest I mean that it is still tracking that physics, right? This is a true force. If I just go like, ah! That is not an honest reaction. It is exaggerated. I put too much into the reaction that wasn't supported by the initiation. Versus a, like this was nothing, right? So if I go that hard, kind of need to match it with the reaction. So outside in, find different dynamics. Okay? If you can get an honest jump out of this, congratulations. That's really, really hard. Because you can't prep. But that's a whole other thing. You can start it in different places, so you don't have to start it close to you. You can start it and go. But remember, you're grabbing onto something, following it, and letting it tug your body in different directions. If you're good with grabbing fixed points, you can start finding fixed tug points, pull points, we'll just call them that, with different body parts. Say your elbow. You've got the different directions. And you can play with that as well. You can play with hips. You can play with knees. Cool. Feet. Get a rope around your ankle. Lots of fun play movement with this. This is a very baseline in kind of figuring out interacting with other objects and environments. Kind of having this as a base of your movement is going to be very useful. Cool. Give that a few more tries. And while you do this, oh good, my screen has gotten rid of the not all of it. There's like I don't know if you guys can see this, but there's this red splotch like on the side of this. I don't even know, man. It's very weird. Something very funky going on in my screen. Okay. Actually, I'm going to take a water break. We're going to move to a second thing. Okay. So, outside in. Inside out is also a thing. We did this a little bit more than we talked about it in the previous class. Let me see how I want to describe this. Inside out is almost like a ball bearing or something, right? So you can make that, it is your center of gravity, which is somewhere in here, right? Depending on your body shape. It's basically where if you had to average out all of the mass of your limbs and legs and organs inside your body, it would be somewhere in the middle of your body and somewhere in this area. If you were a sphere, that would be your center. Fortunately, no one is a sphere. With like the yes. But what you're doing is you are taking that center and you are pulling it to a different part of your body and then throwing it to another place. This is a good place to talk about the way mimes think of themselves, and particularly how they think about gravity. The early 1960s mimes of the modern era talked about how the mime was tragically bound by gravity. They envisioned the mime as a very earthy character, which is weird today because they're kind of these weird fantastical things. But everything in mime is a bit harder to do. That is in a practical sense, it is because you need the extra effort in order to be visible to your audience. So this doesn't take any effort, this motion. However, this means nothing to people watching. Is this a high? Is he touching something? I don't know. But, right? Giving it that extra power, that extra sort of effort. That lets you know, oh, he put his hand on something. I'm exaggerating this incredibly. Let's see if I can get a little bit closer so you can ease your time a bit. Gravity, gets pulled up to my shoulder, and then I throw it out along my arm. Now, I mentioned ball bearing because there's a nice, when you hit something with another something, in physics, they don't just glue together unless there's other things going on, like a ball and a wall. You throw the ball at the wall, it doesn't just stick, it will bounce. That same thing happens in Mime. We recreate that. So we have our fixed point. We'll just go back to our wall. This is a great way to explain it. We have that ball bearing, gravity goes up, it goes out, it hits the wall, and then I'm going to turn sideways. And then it bounces. Now, it doesn't have air. It can't bounce through air because it's not a real ball. It goes back through the material that it came from, right? This is actually far more physics, true to physics, than it really has any right to be. Hit. There is mass to the rest of your body. So as you hit something, the rest of you doesn't stop, right? Well, now we're back to this technique again, right? This didn't know, this was in an inertia. It didn't know that it got moved until it got tugged. This hits. Now this has started moving, this shoulder started moving, and because the contact happens in my hand, it hasn't had, like there's a lag of time that happens through my arm, and until that happens, my shoulder doesn't know that the hand has stopped. So we have that ball bearing hit, and that shoulder keeps going until it kind of meets some resistance. And then we can have this nice sort of boom, 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 back and forth ball bearing sort of thing. Now, it's important to know that I kept my fixed point here. Boom. All right, we can't just let this be whatever. But thinking about it in terms of physics and what would happen if everything was more powerful and heavier is a great way to come to this realization that I can show the effects physics have. Like if you've ever slapped a wall, bam, and felt it in your upper arm, this is why. Bam, it's because your muscles work. They absorb shock from your hand. Whack. And we are imitating that process of forces coming through your body and giving your muscles shock. This is something that people understand. They may not be able to articulate it to you, but they do understand it. Okay, let's see, what else do I want to do? Inside out, outside in. Inside out is going to be how you mostly start movements. For in general, character work, anything like that. Inhales, right? They can all have that sort of like, okay, there's a center here and what? A reaction. A center here and a, oh no, right? We can kind of talk about how that comes out. We're going to go more into that in a later class on creating characters and physicality. But know that's kind of where this is coming from. Inside out, outside movement. I think we're going to move on and we're going to start applying this in environments and that sort of thing. Except for one more technique that I'm going to show you, which is going to take us a minute. So grab some water if you're following along. Shake it out. I know I'm moving kind of quickly through this. Feel free to go back and do these exercises more or again. Practice being the thing that will make them make more sense. Your brain will get tired of thinking like this. You are consciously recreating things that your brain knows intuitively, which can be weird. because your brain kind of has a way of dealing with this, all right, stopping your body. However, you're slowing it down, you're adding more to it, and it's going to cause some mental fatigue. And we're about to do something that's going to make that 10 times worse, because your brain has an idea of what happens when you hit something. We are now going to take an actual physical act that your brain is very, very good at, and we are going to completely invert it. So this is the mime walk. There are many variations. We're going to learn the pressure walk, which is the least stupid looking of them all. So you can impress your friends. Also, this is how you get to the moonwalk eventually. Yes, Michael Jackson knew a mime, and there's all the mimes believe that he stole it from the mime or got the idea from his friend. Ta! Now you know. Okay, the way this works, when we walk, we put one foot out in front and we essentially fall on it and catch ourselves with all these nice strong muscles in our leg. Then we balance on that foot, straighten up, pick the other one up, and fall again. That is, in a very stupid nutshell, walking. So my weight is on what is essentially a straight leg every time. Whenever my leg is bent, it is in the air, it is moving to a new position. That is how we understand walking. You guys are all professionals at this. If you have toddlers around you in any way, shape, or form, either you own them or someone you know has them, you'll notice they're terrible at this. They're like, what? No, none of this one-footed crap. That's insane. Why would I take 1 foot away? But we're good at catching ourselves. Now, the way this works is we are going to start putting weight on a bent leg. So we're going to start here, just like this. I'm just going to grab the ground with my toes. Bare feet are great for this. If you've lived most of your life in shoes, spreading out your toes and kind of grabbing the ground with them is a great way to improve your balance. It will feel bizarre until you get used to it, and then you will hate shoes, like me. But we're going to start there. You are going to try to push that ankle up as far as you can. We want to try to stack bone on bone. This is why dancers develop the point. Other than it looks good, it's actually a stronger way to stand like this. But if you're here, that's fine too. It's just going to be hard to work on your muscles. So what we're going to do is we're just going to put weight on that foot, right? And we're going to see if we can take up that one for a second, or even just like kind of pick it up. We're going to try not to let this go, but I'm going to talk about that in a minute. By go, I mean like don't move your hip. And we're just going to try to switch, right? So now I'm pressing on this foot. Switch, 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 switch. Okay, you can keep that going. You want to try to end, right? My heel touches the ground with my heel getting as far up in the air as it's going to. You don't want to go bam. You don't need that mistiming happening. You want that happening at the same time. You might get the balance wrong, so just keep practicing that balance. Cool. Cool. Shake that out. Now, flat feet on the ground. We are going to slide. This is actually a very important little detail. What we're going to do is we're going to balance on one foot, and then we are going to slide the other foot. We're going to make it hover just off the ground. Okay? So don't touch the ground necessarily, but like hover as close to the ground as you can. You'll get better at that with time. You can pick it up higher, whatever you need to do. But you are going to push it back as far as you can without really bending this leg. You don't want this to happen. You don't want this to happen. By this, I mean that I have picked up my foot, and you can see how it's got a lot of distance between the ground, and it's not even at the same angle as the ground anymore. This you don't want to happen. what did I even do? This, you didn't use your leg. You just bent your knee. So you're gonna do this. You're gonna feel like there might be a weird like sitting action in your opposite leg, and this is gonna feel like it's stretching like crazy. Good. That's what it's supposed to feel like. Off it goes that way. The idea is that it is a hover over the ground, and it looks like it's still on the ground. That is the idea. So you want it to be as close to the ground as you can without touching it, so it's nice and smooth. Step back, let's do the other one. Bring it back, other one. And let's touch our toes and walk that down. Flat foot, press back. Right? You don't want to press too far. You want to kind of hone that in. Mirrors are good for this, video cameras. Also, you can kind of look and see like, oh, that's too much. Boom. It's not far. So you'll notice if I go for distance, I have to start doing weirdness like this, like bending down. I'm getting into a lunge stretch. It's not what we're doing. It's really only about a foot's length. It feels like a long way, but it's really not. It's not much at all. Cool. Excellent. Now we're going to combine those two things. So what's going to happen is we're going to balance on one foot as we press down to the heel through this, right? We did this little bit, right? As we press down to the heel, instead of just switching to the other foot, we are going to press down and we are going to slide that other foot back. There's a detail I'll get to in a second that will make sense, but let's try that a few times. So you start together. We're going to bend this foot. As we press down to the heel, we're going to lean on this foot so much that we don't need to put weight on this other side, and we're going to let it hover about a foot length back. If you do this right, it's almost like you didn't move your flat foot, right? Or your foot that is flat looks like it's flat on the ground. Gotta be careful with my words. Try it the other side. Bring that foot back, place it down in this position. Now we're gonna press that heel down, slide the other foot. Bring this down, push those toes in. As I press the heel, I slide the foot. Good. There's a little balance thing. This is what I was going to say. So my balance right now is over my toes. When I put this heel down, my balance needs to be more back here on my ankles. So there is a little bit, about a foot's width, of backward momentum that you have, or backward movement that you have. Be careful that it doesn't turn into momentum so that you don't do, okay? That's okay if you do that. Like, definitely do that while you're practicing. Find the extremes so you know what it feels like to go too far. Then dial it back in. Whew. I'm thinking about it, so I'm doing it wrong. You will notice if you let your arms swing that it is better if they go in opposition to your knees. So you can do this thing where whichever knee you're sticking out in front, you can tap it with the opposite hand, just so you know, like, okay, opposite is good. We'll turn this way so you can see it a little bit from this direction. Harder to see, so that you can kind of see the feet. You notice even this direction, though, I get this sort of walking motion. Arms will do it as well. That'll help. Don't be doing this. It's a very subtle thing. It's much smaller than you think it is. If you can take a little break, shake out those feet. If you skipped crawling as a kid, you might find this very difficult. If you, for whatever reason, have difficulty with contrapuntal movement, which is moving opposite sides at the same time, this will be difficult. You might tend to be doing something like this, because your brain says, right leg needs a lot of attention, therefore every bit of attention goes into that side. And this just looks bizarre, right? So we don't want to live there. We want to live in this sort of balance, a little bit of swivel. There are tons of little details. We won't get into that. That's sort of a polishing side of things. But that's the mechanics of it. Imagery, if you need imagery, put an orange peel under your heel, put a banana peel under your flat foot, squish the orange, slide on the banana peel. Orange, squish the orange, slide on the banana peel. Put an orange there again, squish the orange, slide on the banana peel. Wow, okay. I really hope this isn't on the stream, but it probably is. Looks like all sorts of psychedelic colors. I have no idea why it's doing that. That's exciting. Okay, I'm very distracted by all those crazy colors on my screen. Cool. So that's the opposite of walking. It is mime walking. Why is it opposite? So I talked about how walking was falling and landing on a straight leg. What are we doing right here? We are telling the audience that this leg is in the air and this leg is on the ground. Because they know intuitively the act of walking requires weight on a straight limb, that obviously that straight leg that moved, obviously it couldn't have moved because you can't move a straight leg. So something else must be going on. That's our illusion here. So we are trying to give the impression that we are just moving past that flat leg. That in essence, the camera that our audience is seeing is panning and keeping us in the center of the frame. They just like, but I'm actually walking. That's kind of the sense we want people to get. Okay. Take another sip of water because I talk a lot. We're going to switch to environments. Now, before I get into environments, I want to talk about, check the time by the way. Ooh, yeah, gotta speed this up. Before I get into too much of it, I want to talk about placing weight. Placing the weight in the environment. So I just talked about this, so it's a segue. You put weight on a straight limb. That is what you do in the real world. If you want to lean on a wall, the close limb is bent, there's no weight on this. The arm that is holding me up is straight. The leg that is holding me up is straight. Doesn't matter what anything else does. That is a law of physics that everyone understands. They visually understand that that is how the world works. Now, we can screw with that because now, by learning that walk, we've realized, oh, hey, this is muscularly difficult. Right? It takes effort, it takes muscle, but it's possible to balance on a bent limb. So now that we know that, we can screw with people. So if we want to put our weight on a table, let's bring back our fixed point. So if you got a fixed point, it's about at your waist height. When you put weight on this arm, you are going to lower yourself down, so that's going to be bending your leg a little bit. And the same amount that you bend, you are going to shrug your shoulder, right? In order to keep this where it is. It's just that little bit, okay? So we're going to let that leg bend, that shoulder shrug. Now I kept this straight, so if I did this in the correct proportion, it looks like I leaned on something here. Now the reality is this leg is working really hard. I can go a little bit further if I really want. I can pick that heel up, I'm working extra hard, and I can even like mechanically give it a little wiggle here. That's bizarre, but this is what you do. Right here, you kind of let that nice and that float of like no weight. I can imitate that with
conscious effort, right? And this is a lot of conscious effort. But now look, I did not bend this leg. So this leg is straight. This leg looks like it's holding me up. This arm looks like it's holding me up, when in reality, it's this leg right here. Yep. So placing weight, that works here as well, right? I've been using this example of leaning on a wall, and this sort of like, so leaning on the wall, doing all this kind of stuff. But really, I can do that without doing any of this. You get more complicated when you start folding or getting using non-hands. Right here. This we're going to bring back, that outside-in tug, right? If I lean on something, say a shelf right here, I make a fixed point, bam, fixed point. And that point actually, it's actually more of a line, it hits this entire arm. I let this leg go. My shoulder shrugs a little bit. I lean into it a tiny little bit because I kind of need to do that to shrug and keep it still. And that has an impact, right? It has a bit of a force. So I let that carry to my head. My head gets a little wiggle. My foot, what is this thing? My knee, part of my leg, my knee and my leg feel some of that. They feel that sort of like, now I'm just hanging. So you get that force that we slapped the wall with or rested violently on this shelf, that translates into our knee, and that affects how we mechanically, consciously demonstrate that there's no weight here, even though that's entirely where everything is. Placing weight on objects that are higher, a little bit more difficult, but you can't just, right? We have to kind of do the little scrunchy thing where we're shrugging, doing that, like that sort of like proportionally up and down, right? There's always a weight that you have to put onto something in order to manipulate it. A wall, you gotta put that on. Table, gotta do that. Ropes, we haven't even gone into hand shapes or anything, we're not going to, but you can kind of, you have to put weight onto them in order to pull them, right? All the mechanical things that you would do. If you're going under something, this is fun, this is interesting. You can't just go under something necessarily without showing it. Right? Now there's a force to this. I kind of have to hold it up in order to make that a visible thing. You don't necessarily have to hold it the whole time. You're gonna go through. Cool? Why am I telling you all this? Because you now have an exercise to do. Your job is to create an environment. We're going to do this Indiana Jones style. So what this is going to be, this is an exercise where you're going to take the skills you've learned, outside in, inside out, the weight placement of walls, this sort of like the walking style opposition of how to think in terms of how does this movement actually work, and then where can I pretend that it's working like that. Like the walking, right? I walk without moving by putting weight in the visually incorrect place, right? I lean on a wall by putting it in the visually incorrect place. We're going to use those understandings now. You're going to create some sort of environment. It does not matter what. Give it 3 objects or 3 rooms, 3 interactions. Keep it simple for this. It's going to be a lot to remember. You are going to traverse through it and back. Indiana Jones being like, you start at the beginning of the crypt or the tomb, you go in, you get the thing, you come back out. You don't have to get anything. You just go there and come back. Okay? You must keep it the same. There and back again, just like the hobbits. Keep it the same, Interact with the environment. You must interact with the same objects. You don't have to interact with them the same way. Explore what that means. What do I mean by that? So say, for example, I've got a hole, right? So I kind of show that, oh, there was nothing there. Maybe it's got some walls on the other side, and I can think of stepping over the hole by holding onto the walls. I can also do a one side going over, right? That's just a random example off the top of my head. That sort of idea, if you create something that you have to jump down from, right? So maybe you do something like this, where you're kind of going, right? I've shown that I have gone down by the fact that my hand went up. You have to go back, right, the same way. Or you go back a different way, like you're climbing up. We don't have anything like ladders or stairs as our illusions just yet. Those are far more advanced than what we've gotten to so far. You can do them. I just haven't walked you through it yet. But find something like that. Keep it simple. Keep it to walls. Going under things is good. As you probably saw there, is a little bit more complicated. I would suggest going around. If you want to do a maze sort of thing, you can do walls that continue through. Now, the last instruction before you get going. The last instruction is minimalism, efficiency. When you touch an object, you want to touch it as little as possible. This is what will keep you from being a terrible mime. No one likes the mime who is like, wall, wall, wall. Whoa, I just want to make sure you know this is a wall, right? Not how we use this. This is why people don't like them, is they get stuck on this and there's no reason for it. So if there's a wall, it's just a wall. This engages your imagination. We talked in Fixed Point about how you actually have to look at that fixed point. Look at this wall. Whatever it is, don't look through it. Look along it. Look down it. Look up it. How tall? How low? How long? Does it keep going that way, or does it stop? All right, kind of have those features in mind, those interactions in mind when you are engaging these things. You don't need to do wall, wall. Right? Take your time as you were learning this. If you need to go wall, okay, what was the next thing I had? Yes, this, okay, like that's fine. But we want to minimize that. We want to minimize the focus on the skill and more focus on the interaction that it allows us, right? Because we are going to now create, I'm going to do this in just a second. We are going to be creating something that is completely invisible, but it also is something that we can interact with, we can tell a story with when we have nothing there, right? We don't need anything there. But when we tell a story, the story is not about the stuff. It's about the person. It's about the character, right? That's why we don't have things up there, because we don't want them in the way. We want to be good enough that with our skills that everyone can see those objects and understand what's going on, but we want them to pay more attention to the character than they do to the technique and to the skill. So, minimalism, efficiency. Minimal, touch it as little as possible. Don't be handsy with your illusions. Efficiency. Don't worry about, so for example, if I have a wall and then a low door to go through, I don't want to go wall, wall, door, down, door, down, through. That wasn't awful, but I touched things way more than I needed to. How much better is this? Wall. Oh, I see this down here. I don't need to define this whole thing. I see it. And through, right? Much more minimal, much more focus on whatever the story is. So, right? You have an efficiency that you can build in. Don't worry too much about that as you're defining what's going on, but that will develop. See what you can let go of and still tell the story. See what is the most minimal. Do I even need two hands here? No. There you go. Maybe I don't even, I kind of did another hand up there, but I don't need this awkward hand here. Cool. Okay. That's enough talking. Minimalism, efficiency, 3 objects, spaces, go through them, reverse, right? Don't go through backwards. Don't go and then go backwards. Go and get back to where you started, okay? I'm going to make up one real quick. You can do your own. I will talk through what I'm doing so you can kind of have an example. And that will be the end of our class today, all right? So go ahead and start whenever you feel like it. Let's see. What I want to do. I think I like that weird little hole in the ground. So for me, I'm going to grab, I'm going to do a wall. I'm going to get rid of the second wall. We're just going to do a wall and something I have to jump over. I'm out of space because I'm in my living room. So we're going to have a duck. We're going to duck under something. How do I want this? Under, and maybe I will get through something. Ha! The monkey. Cool. Oh. Gotta go under this thing. And oh, that's the wall. Cool. It can be as simple as that. I would recommend if you film yourself, look at it, take a look at what you could do better. I'm sure there's plenty I would pick that apart if I was doing it for a piece, anything other than messing around in class. I will say this, as you look at yourself. A, that's a really important skill if you're going to be doing movement. B, don't be afraid of it. You are going to see everything wrong because you already know what you're doing right. You know what you were trying to do, so you see all the failures that a lot of other people won't see when you look at yourself. Keep in mind, this is a critique, keep in mind that you're exploring. Whenever I do something on stage or on screen these days, whenever I do that, it's rehearsed. It is cleaned up. I've looked at it, I've gone back, messed with it, looked at it again, had other people look at it. It's got a lot of feedback and things get very polished towards the end. So if you see a very polished mime performing and it looks amazing and you're like, what, can't I be like that? It's because he practiced. That's it. He practiced that set of things. Now he may have be able to pull it out at the drop of a hat, but it's because he's practiced that in the studio enough times that he can just do it because he's practiced that weird little goofy sequence. So keep playing. You never know when something goofy will make an impressive move somewhere. But that is all I'm going to say. It's actually a bit longer than I wanted it to be. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope the video artifacts weren't too crazy. We'll see if the video, if it's unsalvageable, I might redo this class at another point. But there it is. So we went over some various movement, outside in, inside out, the mime walk, the pressure walk. There are a couple others, which are profile. There's some goofy ones out there. But those are some of the really nice ways of developing movement, using these techniques to develop movement in environments and walking through environments. You can oh gosh, I forgot to mention this. You can combine them, right? Mime walk and walls. You can combine all that kind of stuff. If you it gets more difficult. This is that athleticism that comes into it eventually. You can push it that direction. You don't have to. You can keep it kind of in the basic form of being a human wandering around in space, just the space is invisible. Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot them into the comments. I'll keep an eye on these videos as they stay on YouTube and all that good stuff. But I did promise the big thing that I've been working on and why I wanted to shoot this out on a different day than it was originally scheduled was because I am developing a Mime for Zoom kind of thing. That's the catchy title, Zoom Mime. I tried that one. Workshop it. Don't know about that. But I have been involved in a fair number of screen-oriented live performances at this point, and I've actually taught a few classes to the performers that I've been working with, and kind of doing stuff on my own as I've appeared in them. And there's some really interesting things that you can do with Mime in the sort of Zoom box sort of thing. So I'm going to be teaching a class specifically on that in the very near future. I hope this week or next. I'll put out announcements on it. It hopefully will be soon. But that's the big thing I've been working on. I wanted to get this out of the way so it's not mucking up the people trying to go to this one and not that one and all that kind of stuff. But if you are interested in that at all, and if you're still hanging around after I rambled, thank you so much. I'll put up more about that out on my Facebook page, Instagram, all that good stuff. But that's all for now. And let me know if you're interested in any of that cool stuff in the comments, any questions, and I will see you guys next time. Thank you so much.
Bam, 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 bam.